Atari used to be a powerhouse in the video game industry, and during its reign, it had a policy of not crediting its game developers in fear of them being poached by competitors. Developers had to resort to sneakily adding their names to games through Easter eggs. Upset at this Atari policy, a group of developers went off on their own and started a new company. That company was known as Activision, and one of its beliefs was to treat developers much better and give them proper credit. The developer of an Activision game had their name directly printed on the cartridge, finally giving credit to the visionary of the game. Today, Activision is a multi-billion-dollar company with best-selling titles like the Call of Duty series. And with Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War, the game gives a nod to classic Activision by letting you play some of their classic 2600 games. The games that started it all for Activision. So I'll take you down memory lane and go through all the classic games currently available through Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War. To get to the games, for the main Cold War menu, go to Multiplayer, then choose Barracks, now move down to Arcade, and this will bring up the list of classic Activision games. These games are decades old, so they are very simple, but that does not mean they are not fun. I'll go through all the games alphabetically so you can see how they all play. This is Barnstorming. The objective of the game is to fly through as many barns as possible in the allotted time. You have obstacles that will make your game more difficult. There are birds flying in the air, windmills that can suddenly appear out of nowhere. Even the barns are an obstacle if you don't fly through them in the correct way. When you do hit an obstacle, it just stops you and you can still go on your way, but this slows your progress and therefore your overall time. Once the barn counter at the top reaches 0, the game is over. Now just try to beat your time or have a friend or family member challenge you and see who can get the best time. Here we have a sports title simply labeled Boxing. Naming this symbol was common back in the early days of video gaming, but you get exactly what its name implies, a boxing game. The Atari 2600 only had one button, so the developer had to get creative so your boxer can use both their right and left arms, and also include combos. The game is smart enough to know where the boxers are positioned relative to each other, so your boxer only uses his left arm when your opponent is on your left, and vice versa. If both boxers are face to face with each other, then either arm is used automatically. Combos are done by simply holding down the punch button. The controls are pretty easy to pick up, so you'll get comfortable in no time. At first look, you might think this game would be similar to Choplifter, but in actuality, this game has a lot more in common with Defender than Choplifter. The goal of the game is to destroy all the enemies in the play area, while also protecting the truck convoy below. Along with dodging enemy airplanes and helicopters, you also have to avoid their weapons fire. I'm still impressed that the 2600 was capable of having a radar at the bottom that kept track of all characters in the game. Enduro is a racing game where the goal is to pass the required number of cars over the course of a day. While you're racing and passing cars, the game's graphics will change to represent the time of day and different weather conditions. This was such a cool effect to see on the 2600 back then. Hitting cars slows you down and slows you down significantly, so you really need to learn when to slow down to avoid hitting other racers. If you pass the required amount of cars before the day is over, then you earn the privilege of racing for the next day. Fishing Derby is a game where you compete against another player on who scored the most points by capturing fish. The worth of a fish is determined by how deep the fish is. The deeper the fish, the more points you gather. But be careful not to let the shark eat your hard-earned catches. The first player to reach 99 points wins. Grand Prix is another racing game where you must get to the finish line in the shortest amount of time possible. The only obstacles in your way are other cars that can slow you down. Challenge yourself or a friend to beat your best time. Kaboom is one of my favorite Atari 2600 games. Unfortunately, it really needs the original paddle controller to truly take advantage of it. There's a mad bomber dropping bombs, and it's your job to catch them before they reach the floor. As you progress through the game, the bombs are dropped at a faster rate. This game really needs the paddle controller. It's just not the same without it. Pitfall is an early platform game. Your goal is to collect all the treasure within a 20-minute time period. Along the way, you'll have to avoid barrels, alligators, snakes, cobras, scorpions, and traps. This is one of the most known Atari 2600 games, and a favorite among many. Pitball 2 is a big upgrade in gameplay and graphics to the original. In fact, to make the game possible, the cartridge included a helper chip that gave the 2600 better graphics and sound capabilities. Kind of like what the Super FX chip was to the Super NES. The goal of the game is pretty similar to the first Pitfall, but you also have the added task of finding your niece and cat along the way. Scene: River Raid. Finally, we have River Raid, a shoot-'em-up game where you take control of a fighter jet and earn points by shooting down enemy targets. Be careful not to collide into any targets or walls or you will get destroyed. You also can't run out of fuel, so collect any fuel targets along the way. Try to get as high a score as possible to challenge your friends and family. And those are the games. I just recently found out about these games, and it seems like there were fewer games before because some of my games were marked as new. So it's possible that Activision may release even more games in the future. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a like. And if you want to see more content like this, hit the subscribe button and its bell icon so you can get notified of future videos. Thanks for watching, and I'll speak to you next time.